Moira is a solid support capable of consistent healing and damage as well as convenient survivability options, especially since the release of Overwatch 2. There have not been any current changes to her kit, but with 2 less tanks on the field, she is played much differently than she was in Overwatch 1, warranting a second guide for this character. Keep in mind that today's guide is strictly discussing the major things that have changed with Moira in Overwatch 2. All of her abilities are still the same in values, and I suggest watching the first Moira guide on my channel before referencing this one. If something does change with this character though, I'll make changes as needed. Let's get right into the new stuff. So I might have lied a little here. Moira's fade did get changed since the original guide in the sense that she can now jump vertically much higher than before. This change is nice as it allows for some pretty sick fade jumps, but if you want those types of videos, I suggest you look elsewhere on the channel or at other creators that specialize heavily in this character. So if all of her changes to the damage orb did not go through, what did change with Moira? Well, her playstyle. You cannot be a heal bot all game with Moira. You have to find ways to support your team in other ways that make her viable. That isn't to say that you should not heal your team at all, just that supporting them within other means is the best option. The way you do this will be with your damage, especially against tanks other than D.Va. You can throw damage orbs liberally against all other tanks besides her. The main advantage Moira has over other supports is her survivability and healing capability when characters are stacked, but sheer healing is not what you are looking for in Overwatch anymore. Thus, she is not really used in high elos. So if the main playstyle is as simple as focusing on dealing much more damage and forcing out flankers or eliminating the backline in Overwatch 2, what are the things players commonly do to mess something that seems so simple up? While it was touched up on in the first guide, managing your healing resource effectively is the most important concept to get down if you're looking to climb on Moira. Going into a fight with half of your healing gauge available consistently will cost you. In other words, you do not need to hold down the healing spray to restore small bits of damage. All that is needed is a simple tap, as the spray applies a healing over time effect as opposed to a flat effect like Baptiste's grenades. On the topic of the resource meter, it is important that you are doing enough damage to keep your uptime healthy as well. This should not be as much of a problem in the new game as your playstyle is much more aggressive in general anyway, but it is more important to keep this in mind now than ever. Remember that binding damage to scroll wheel down in addition to a default bind is very helpful, as it allows you to build the gauge much faster. Binding heal to scroll wheel up though is pretty useless now, so don't worry about that, just focus on the damage bind. Make sure that you are not using your fade to engage all the way out or all the way in. You have to use it to get in a safe spot that is still active in the fight, not completely out if the fight is still active. The only exception to this rule is when you are using her ultimate, Coalescence. In this situation, you can use fade to get on a target that is in a vulnerable position, throw a damage orb, and then use your ultimate to start the fight with a quick pick and snowball into the rest of your team. Lining up the beam with your team and the enemy still applies, but aggressive plays like these are still possible in the new game. Just make sure that you use your abilities before you activate the ultimate, as you will get them back by the time the duration is complete. Let's review exactly what you need to know from this guide before you get back into the game as Moira though. Moira's competitive advantage as a support is her incredible survivability combined with her solid healing when teammates are stacked together. As of right now, there is not a tank in the game that requires this form of support, as Kiriko does just enough healing along with solid damage in Suzu. This might change with the addition of the new tank Ramatra, but this is for a different video to discuss. Because of this, you have to look to be aggressive with your abilities and damage when given the opportunity. If you fail to do this, there's no reason you should be playing Moira over characters like Kiriko, Baptiste, and even Ana. Make sure to keep the resource alive so you don't have to worry about it when the fight breaks out. The more uptime you have, the more value you will create for your team, and likewise, the more wins you will achieve. So if you liked this guide, don't forget to check out the original guide in order to get a grasp of Moira quickly to start carrying your games as support. Don't be afraid to ask me questions, but until next time, I've got to peace out and Paz out. I'll see you in the next one.